This is Shraddha from SNEH Foundation. Welcome to the Better Citizens. This is a series of interviews where we call founders, CEOs of various social organizations from across the world. And for the viewers, I would like to tell you that I have with me Ms. Amuda Mishra from Nepal. She is the founder of Ujyalo Foundation, and we'll be talking to her regarding the foundation and what does she do over there and all those things. So yes, Amuda, to start with, please give us a little bit of your background, your family, your education, and all that basic details.
Okay, hi Shraddha. Thank you so much for having me over and arranging this. I know we've been planning this for a long time, and I'm so happy that I could finally be here and share my journey and my story with you all. So, like Shraddha said, my name is Amuda Mishra. I am the founder and executive director of a feminist organization in Nepal called Ujyalo Foundation. Our vision is to empower girls and women so that we have more women and girls in decision-making roles in the country.
Right.
So to talk a little bit about myself, I was born and raised in Nepal, and I followed my dad to the States when I was 17 years old. And then I grew up in this state called Colorado, and in a city called Denver. And then I got my undergraduate degree from here. My undergraduate degree is in molecular biology and cognitive neuroscience. I know, very different, right? And then I got my master's in public health and global health.
Okay, that's amazing.
And then, yeah, I know, that's like very extreme. Like I have had a lot of like career track changes. And I moved to, not I moved to that. So I moved here and then I got my education and everything. And then in 2010, I ended up trekking in Nepal for 90 days. And when I was back home, like it really changed my perspective about how the country was and how it has changed or not changed since the time I've left.
Right.
So that kind of like was the biggest reason for me to move back. But I didn't move back until 5 years. I always give an example of like, watching Rang De Basanti, the movie that you guys have, and feeling that all of a sudden feeling that gust of like patriotism and like that, adrenaline rush to come back and do something. But it actually took 5 years to shape up things and all of that stuff. And in 2013, I was a part of this initiative called by the Clinton Foundation called Clinton Global Initiative University.
Okay.
And I had a project where we were recycling plastic bottles to make them lighting agents.
Mm-hmm.
So my project was conducted in one of the slums in one of the cities in Birganj. So I had a lot of moments of like living here, growing up here, but also connecting back to Nepal in one way or the other,
Yeah.
whether it was for trekking or for some kind of project or volunteer work, and I always felt like I was connected.
Right.
So I felt like in 2015, it was my time to actually give back to Nepal and come back and do something.
Right.
And when Ujjalo was started.
Inspiring. I mean, so many changes and here and there, and still you've managed to establish one very good organization. So kudos to you, first of all. Going ahead, Amuda, who has been your role model in this entire journey?
Like when I was reading your question, that was the most difficult one to answer. I think my role models have changed and they keep on changing. There isn't a specific person I follow.
Yeah.
But I think like women from the community level or at the grassroots have always been inspirational for me. The way that they thrive and they are empowered and the determination to do something.
Right.
And the way that they work, balancing their household and professional lives, it's very inspiring to see that, so because we work with women's rights, we work with spaces where we can have more leaders who are women and girls. I think seeing these women at the grassroots level or seeing participants who come to our leadership institute have always been very inspirational for me, and they change, so in one cohort I have this like one woman or one change maker or one leader who I'm like, oh my god, like this is really amazing and kudos to what they're doing. Or even some of my teammates who I work with at the foundation, these people like really put the bar up so high that they have become my role model, and it keeps on changing.
Right.
So yeah, not specific, but like more like the women that I have connected with and I work with.
That's
They're my role models. Yeah.
That's great. So coming back to Ujyalo, how and when did it start, and what are your major activities that you've been doing?
Okay. I think like I kind of talked about that in my family background too. I really can't separate Ujalo and my life, looks like. So it started in 2014, but it was functioning on grounds only right before the earthquake happened in 2015 in Nepal. We have evolved over time. It started as a leadership institute to incubate ideas, like from women, and to advance their ideas, because as you know, in a patriarchal society, there is not a lot of investment that we make in women and girls as a whole. And when it comes to economic investment or financial investment, that is even nominal, right? So Ujalo started as a platform where we could give voices to ideas of women and girls so that they can go out in the community and advance their ideas. And that's what we started with. And when we were working on that, we also felt like we need to have workshops on gender, sexuality, and leadership, and really talk about that discourse so that we can have more women and girls in leadership roles.
Right.
So right now we run 3 leadership institutes throughout the year. One is for girls off of age of like 12 and above, for adolescent girls. And then one is for all professional women, where we define profession as something that you choose to do. And has no stigma to it, right? It's just not like sitting in an office. It can be anything from like being a street vendor to being a sex worker to actually sitting in an office and working. So we do that. And then the other one is we work with elected leaders at the governance level, where we can also identify the gap in their skill sets so that we make sure that these nominations are coming through and women are getting more and more women are getting elected in these positions, right? So we actively run these 3 kinds of leadership institute. Our leadership institutes are very informed by the feminist approach and lens, where we talk about rights and disparity at workplace or inequality, and some really burning issues like unpaid care work, or like how do we decriminalize sex work so that it is more safe for women who are involved in it. So that is the aspect that we look at. We still have an incubation platform for adolescent girls where they can bring in their ideas and they can pitch, and then win a small amount of seed fund money to actually conduct their ideas in the community.
Right.
So yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So during this entire journey, Amuda, are there any success stories or incidences that you remember, which kind of led you to believe that what you're doing is right?
Right. I mean, there's so many, I think, like I feel like every time we have these cohorts, there is somebody who really inspires you, who really becomes that outlier, and goes out of the box and does something so amazing, or like really redefines who they are. So there are a couple, I think one is with this young girl called Sanskriti, who was in one of our adolescent programs. And she won the seed fund money to create a sports team at her school that conducted inter-school football and cricket. And we didn't have that space, So every time I see her, I'm just like, oh my God, you really actually made that happen. And she plays cricket herself. So what a beautiful way of like taking your passion and your sport and really advocating for equality. And that's something that I think she's done. And she really is a proponent for like advocating for young girls and their ideas. And she's come back as alum and mentor into our programs and does a whole lot of things in the community. So I think that's something that that's the leadership that we want to see in growing young girls, right? So that they have their space, they can voice their opinions and their ideas are heard. So I think that is one of the success stories that I always remember and deeply inspires me as well. If I was 15, I didn't even think about these kind of things. So kudos to her that at such a young age, she really has set the bar up so high.
Right.
The other one is that we had a leader in one of our program who was who was a stay-home mom, and even though that job is so much with unpaid care work and taking care of her family, she always felt like it was not enough. But after the leadership course, she could recognize that even if it's not paid, it's a laborious work and it needs to be recognized and identified. So when she went back home, she talked to her husband, and she really wanted to get into their business. They ran a clothing store. So she kind of talked to him and convinced him, and she actually runs the business right now. Her husband has actually stepped down. So we see these changes where women recognize their ambition, their sense of agency beyond being confined by the social parameters.
Right.
And I think these are just like few stories that I can recall right now, and they deeply motivate me, and really inspire me to keep on continuing the work that we do, because we feel like there is that impact factor, there is that change factor.
Right.
And maybe it's not instantly, but over the course of time, I've seen many people write back to us and be like, oh my God, that one session that we did on feminism really changed my perspective. Or, I really could understand my space and I need to advocate for my rights. Or, oh my God, I recognize my privileges and now I need to leave that space so that somebody else can voice out their opinions and be heard.
Right.
So, yeah,
Great.
so
Yeah. Amuda, this development sector, the social sector, is not as rosy as it seems, like as you know. What has been, the biggest challenge, or what are some of the challenges that you would like to highlight? Because there are a lot of young people who want to come to the social sector, development sector, but we need to, put up a clear picture in front of them.
Right, right. I'm not quite sure how development agencies are viewed in India, Shraddha, but like in Nepal, it's a very lucrative field to be in. That's at least how it's viewed, because there are a lot of foreign aid agencies, and working in one of those and earning in a very different salary scale is very tempting, But if you're trying to work at the grassroots level, work with a local organization, it is not rosy, like you said. There's a lot of hardships. There's a lot of like not a good pay scale. A lot of like extenuating working hours, and really being there emotionally, physically, mentally for the community. It's very demanding,
Yeah.
right? So I think like development, you really have to be in that headspace to impact change. You
Correct.
really have to believe in the work that you do. You really have to feel the cause to actually be an efficient and effective contributing member. If you're there for like other reasons because it looks fancy and maybe it makes you feel like good,
Mm.
those are good reasons too, but they will just not make the cut. They will just not take you that far, because at some point it's the return is not that much, because you can't see the change right then and there, right? You have to wait for it. And it's also a space where like the development agencies or the workers are not very much appreciated, because the community has a lot of issues, so you're only picking one, and so many things needs to be resolved. So it's also not a space where there's a lot of gratification, like gratitude and appreciation too. So you really have to be in that space to be like, you know what, I am going to stick through this and make sure that I'm living by this cause and impacting change. I also feel like it's not a 9 to 5 job. You can't come with a mindset being like, oh, I'm going to go in there at 9 and get out at 5. It's a commitment that we made in uplifting communities and people and individuals. So that commitment cannot be confined. So I feel like a lot of frustration could be there, because you want to have your personal life too. You want to have that balance too. And sometimes this space does not allow it, because there's so much of work there needs to be done.
Correct.
Like striking the right balance and knowing what you want and staying true to the cause that you truly believe in is the best way, I think, to analyze if this is the right space for you or not.
Right. I completely agree with what you said, and the situation is very similar to India. I think what is required is intrinsic motivation. There has to be also empathy, a lot of patience, because as you said, the change is not seen immediately. You have to have patience. You have to have that consistency to go forward and keep making
Right.
that change to see the impact. So completely agree with what you said, and yes, but again, I mean, what are some of the ways, in which you keep yourself motivated? Because all these challenges are there like every day. So, what is
Right.
that one thing, or maybe two, three things that make you wake up every day and have the same passion and motivation to go forward?
Right. Okay. The first thing is that I don't think that I have the same kind of motivation consistently every day. I do have my low points where I'm just like, I really contemplate about things, right? But I do have a lot of high points. Like
Hmm.
I have a lot of like peaks while I'm doing this kind of work. I think I'm very passionate about like empowering women.
Hmm.
Um, I do feel the need, not only in Nepal, globally for women to be representing in spaces.
Yeah.
Um, which I think also sometimes I'm so motivated that I can't strike a balance between my personal and professional life.
Yeah.
So like when you ask me that question, I just kind of like maneuver towards what I was doing and what Ujyalo is, which I think I really need to work on. But I think the thing is just like there is so much that we need to do,
Hmm.
and I truly feel like growing up in Nepal, growing up in a patriarchal society, working there, I see it. The narrative from my mother's generation to my generation might have shifted, but
Yeah.
not in the pace and scale I want to, And I think we owe it, like this generation owes it to the next generation of women and girls to make sure that we fight hard so that like they have that space to move it forward. I often think about like voting rights. If like women prior to us haven't even laid that ground,
Hmm.
we didn't even have voting rights, and it's so recent. It's not even like many years ago. It's like so recent that we women had access to voting rights, or like sexual reproductive health rights. And I think there's so much to do, and just knowing that I owe it to the next generation
Hmm.
to make sure that this path is led like the prior generation did it for me, so that I can have this conversation with you. I can actually openly advocate about the things that we talk about right now. I
Right.
think I really take that ownership very heartily. And even in my low days, when I meet people like Sanskriti or Preeti, um, or my other leaders, or even my teammates who are just like really putting it out there and trying to work so hard to
Hmm.
make sure that we meet that goal, I think that keeps me motivated. Like just looking at that and being like, oh my God, there's so much we can do. And there's so much that needs to be done.
Right.
And that ownership of like to the next generation that we have.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Coming to you as a founder, you are a leader of this organization, right? So, what are some of the qualities of a leader in a social or development sector? Because it's completely different from, what a
Right.
leader looks like in a corporate world or maybe, in a political world. So, how is it different, and what are some of the leadership qualities that one should have when one decides to, lead a social organization?
Right. Um, I think I think the mind. This is such a tough question. And I wasn't a founder before, so I've like definitely learned a lot at my job. Like I literally learned at the job how to be better, and I still do every day. Some my days are never perfect. There's something that I wish I could have done better, or somewhere like I could have endorsed it better or been better.
Right.
What I have realized over time is that really having that mindset, a progressive mindset,
Mm.
that you are going to change. You will take up challenges. You will, even though you don't like it and it's hard. You will have those difficult conversations. You will be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And for me, what has helped is that the more vulnerable I have been as a leader, I feel like the more acceptance that I have received.
Mm.
You know, sometimes it's still not enough. And also having that attitude and mindset that I will try to do better than what I did yesterday.
Mm.
And I'm learning at the job. There's no such thing as perfecting the skills, because there is no perfection to it, right?
Right.
Because it's so circumstantial, it's so contextual, it's so individual, it's so collective, and it's all of that in one space.
Correct.
So just having that mindset and attitude that, you know what, okay, here I did a blunder, or this is an error, and owning up to it and be like, you know what, okay, I did not react well, or I did not do this properly, or I could have done better here, and making sure that that's applied.
Yeah.
Making sure that that's applied. That's something that's very important for me as an individual too.
Right. Right. And I think acceptance, like you rightly said, you have to accept and own that you did a blunder, and you have to have a growth mindset. You have to have a progressive mindset, as you said,
Right, right,
as a general leader also, and specifically at a social organization, definitely.
right, right.
What are your dreams for your organization, Amuda? Like, where do you see Ujyalo 5 years down the line, or maybe 10 years down the line?
I have a lot of dreams, I think like I dream about this foundation a lot, like what it could be, how it could grow, what could we make out of it. The dream is to be connected to more women. The dream is also to make sure that when Ujalo actually does what its mission says, which is to put many women and girls in leadership positions and decision making roles, I feel like when we're closer to that, also exit out of that space. That is also my dream. I feel like development agencies don't have to be a legacy foundation kind of thing, where generate my daughters or my, I don't know, family is running it after me and all of that stuff. I really want to kind of like shift that mindset. And I think as a founder, I was very clear about it when I started it too. Like, it is something that has to exit at some point. um, Maybe like 10 years, 15 years, when you feel like, oh, you've done the good in the community, you've actually uh, made the community sustainable in some ways, or have enough women to advocate for your cause, you know and and then Ujalo doesn't have to exist, right? These women can run their own Ujalos in different shapes and form. I also feel like, for development to happen and to foster in its truest form, the governance has to be strong. It has to be the responsibility of a community or the government to empower women and girls. It has to be their central agenda.
Right.
It is not a development sector or a development agency's work to come and do that.
Correct.
So I feel like, and also for development agency to not last there forever. We definitely like disrupt the market in a positive way too, but also there are some baggages that we bring into the market as well, right? We make the population very dependent and all of that stuff. So my dream is to like really, my for me the sustainability of this idea of Ujalo would be when we have enough women advocating for themselves.
Right.
We have enough women who can like talk about our um, courses, or talk about our experiences, or take that learning and put into something that they believe in.
Right.
And at that point, I don't think so we even need to exist as an institution.
Right.
We already have our I don't know, like our leaders and change makers out there in the society, and I think that is what it should be.
Right.
That's a dream. That's a dream.
Yeah, I mean, the goal has to be, making people sustainable, making people self-advocate themselves, and not be dependent on any particular organization or a person. I think that's
Exactly.
the sustainable way to have an organization, and I think that's a great dream to have. And we wish you all the best for that. Lastly, what I your some of your takeaways that you would like to give to our viewers. There are a lot of people willing to contribute voluntarily or monetarily, or they want to start their own organization. So what are some of those takeaways or messages that you would want to give?
Right. So, I started Ujalo when I was very young. I started Ujalo when I was like 25 years old, I think, and um if you ask the 25-year-old right now, I would say that maybe it was not needed. Maybe I kind of like added to the very idea that I right now feel like should not exist. I feel like there needs to be, there shouldn't be a lot of development agencies. So I think about it, like if you can tag with somebody and amplify their vision, I
Yeah.
think that's even a better thing. We don't need to be mushrooming everywhere. It's a commitment, founding your organization and finding that true north that you really want to do is a commitment. Like once you found the organization, you can't like back off. You can't be like, okay, like I don't know what to do with this. It's a child, and you really have to like nurture it and help it grow. And it's a commitment, and you don't only make a commitment to the community, you also make a commitment to your donors, you also make a commitment to your staff, you make a commitment to your family, that's saying that, okay, these are my hours that I will be working, and it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
There's so much of physical and emotional involvement in this, of not only you, but also the people around you and the people that you work with.
Yeah.
So you have to have your mindset very clear, I think, like this is something that you really want to do.
Correct.
Now coming to like volunteering things, I love the idea of community service. I think it's great. People should be able to volunteer as much as they can, but don't make it a one-time thing. Don't make it a story on Instagram. It's great. You can still put that story and tell people what you're doing and get more people to do it. That's an amazing space, right? But if you're just doing it for that, then maybe you really need to reflect on what's the purpose behind it. Because sometimes I feel like, volunteers, when we come and help the community, we come with a lot of savior attitude that we're better than them.
Yeah.
And it already jeopardizes the power dynamic that is already there. So we add to that, and that's not what we want. When we're trying to create equitable world, that is not what we want. So I think being sure about how you're contributing, being a conscious volunteer,
Right.
And knowing that your contribution will impact. So you need to stay true to that.
Correct.
And just leaving the savior attitude, or I'm better than you, that's why I'm here attitude at home, and just going to the community as a human being,
Right.
where you could be more empathetic and vulnerable.
Totally. I totally agree to what you said, and I can so relate to, all this what you said just now. So
Right.
that's amazing, Amuda. We will be giving, details of your organization at the end of this video. So request you to send me some pictures and your details.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking out time and, agreeing to do this interview. We were really glad to have you.
Yeah, and thank you, Shraddha. I think you've been so patient, and I've not been the nicest to
Totally.
work with
No,
on this.
nothing like
I've just like given you so many timelines and never like stuck through it. So
But as you
thank you
said,
for having me.
the working hours are really,
Right.
that, great. So I can totally understand.
Okay,
And
thank you. But
I
this
would
was
look,
great.
I would look forward to some collaborations in the future with you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
So much. Bye bye. See you.
Bye.